don't know. Yeah, so basically somebody asked if the new Lord pack would be the new format, like 4 Lords for all of the Lord packs from now on. They basically said that they really enjoyed it, so maybe they will do it in future. Can you tell us anything about the new regions coming to Immortal Empire map? One little interesting area of the map is something that a few people have already spotted, and that is that the Great Desert of Arabia looks like a little different as a province, and that's because it is a little different. I won't spoil anything, and it's nothing too major anyway, but we've tried to make the region feel a bit unique, something we'd like to do to more places on the map. Landmarks and unique settlement chains help us do this across the map too, so that when you arrive at a new location, it's not just another settlement, but it has a bit of flavor and character too. Okay, so just a hint at something new in the desert there. It doesn't say what it is. I'll just kind of move through this as quick as I can because there's probably like a heap of it. Oh, there's someone from ODM. Hey, Akmaiden. Do you think that new unique mechanics for older vanilla base game lords such as Grimgor, Malekith, etc. Definitely not impossible. This is an age-old question for us, particularly being the DLC team, whereby we have to decide how much of our time is spent adding new content and how much we'll spend on stuff we've already made. It's a tricky balancing act. Having factions that are easier or harder is fine. Having factions that have more or less mechanics or more complex or less complex mechanics is also fine. What we really want to try to stay away from is having a faction be the de facto faction of that race and nobody wants to pick anyone else for fear of missing out. We've fallen into that trap before with Ikit being an example. He's just cooler and better than Quick, and that's good in a way because it means we've gotten better as a team and have made the new stuff better or fuller. But of course, it isn't as great if you're a Quick fan. Ultimately, the answer is the same as it will always be. We want to update the old content. We just have to find the right time. So that's cool. Hey, Andrew Jones. Trying to make them all viable choices. Yeah, I've kind of become aware of that, and that kind of comes back to what I was wondering about the about that comes back to what I was wondering about confederations in Warhammer 3 as well. Because currently in Warhammer 3, confederations are extremely difficult to get. Or not quite to the point where it's impossible, but almost to that point, And I was wondering if they'd sort of done that intentionally because they wanted people to have to play different factions. Whereas in Warhammer 2, with a lot of factions, basically you're just gonna go straight. You're just gonna go for the you're just going to go for whichever faction's the strongest and confederate all of the others. Whereas if they make it impossible to confederate, or practically impossible, then you have to like play the different factions in order to try out the different flavors, So yeah, that's sort of another aspect of that as well. I'm just still wondering whether they're going to make it easier to confederate when they put in the patch for Immortal Empires. Saw a Reddit post a few days ago and I had a good idea. It was about various undercities and if we could get... How do I see the rest of the question? Can't really see it up here. Anyway. On our radar for sure. We made a few improvements to this in Warhammer 3 with the settlement drop-down list, but we're well aware that there is still a ways to go before it's on par with other settlement usability features. So yes, it's on our radar. We can keep making improvements, etc. I think they're basically saying it's hard to like see all of the undercity details, like the interface isn't that great. So yeah, they're like, cool, we're gonna try and work on it. If they do that, they should just make confederations impossible. It would remove the FOM, the fear of missing out with confederation strats. Yeah, I kind of agree. Or my idea was to make it game period dependent, game phase dependent. So like you can't get any confederations in the early game up to turn 30. Then it's like extremely difficult to get up to turn 60 to 90 to the point where there's no point doing it unless you want to ruin your whole campaign basically. But then after turn 90 or after turn 120 or something, then confederations become much easier. So that basically there is still a big incentive to play the different factions because most of your game is going to be just with that lord. But if you want that collect them all, it doesn't matter which faction you play, you're still going to be able to collect them all, but not until the end, not until after you've done most of the work with your main faction, So yeah, I feel like that'd be a cool way to go. I don't have fear of missing out with Tomb Kings or Vampire Coast. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you can't confederate them. So yeah, making there no confederation anymore would be an option. But I don't know. I feel sad about that because we've done so much work around confederating and figuring out how to confederate factions and stuff. What's the next answer? So I'm not going to read all the questions. I'll just read the ones that they actually answered. Any updates coming regarding some DLC lords like Malice, Nakai, etc., compared to the other DLC lords? Don't know what was the question. Immortal Empires was never going to be about. Immortal Empires was never going to be about major reworks. Those take up half a lord pack usually, so it wasn't feasible for this project. It's the lords that need the biggest changes. Those two being fair examples that are the hardest hit to fit into a project because naturally their changes will take the most time and effort. So where there is a will, there is definitely a way, and we really do want to take a look at Nakai and others in full. We just have to find the right time when that makes sense. We'll make tweaks along the way as we've already done, but for lords like this, we really want to make sure that if and when we give them their day in the sun, we get it right once and for all. So basically what they're saying here is, you know, every faction is going to get a little bit of a rebalance when they get put into Immortal Empires, because they need to get everything onto the same par, like same level as the Game 3 factions. But he's saying that the amount of tweaking that the factions get is going to be nowhere near as much as the tweaking that they would get if it was a DLC faction. Like if a new DLC came out from Malice or whatever, then Malice would get like a full, 50% of his stuff reworked at the same time. So it's not going to be at that level, but yeah. So it sounds like they were saying some of the factions really want to take sort of sounded like he was saying here that there were some factions that are getting more attention in the Immortal Empires rework than others. So we already know that like Manfred von Carstein and Volkmar are both getting substantial reworks because they're getting the Books of Nagash mechanics, instead. So I mean, despite what they're saying here, like there are some factions that are getting substantial reworks. We kind of already know that, but I think what basically saying, not many. The majority, like every faction is getting a little bit of a tweak, but not to the level of a DLC or a rework. But only like a couple that they had to change, I guess. Like the ones that the ones that they specifically picked out with the that are getting the new own factions or whatever. Any plans to make owned legendary lords from previous games playable on the Realm of Chaos map? It's absolutely noted that this went down really well when we did this for Warhammer 2. You all really enjoyed playing the old lords on the Vortex, so nothing coming as of Immortal Empire's release, but I don't doubt we'll do something in the future. Okay, cool. So yeah, we were wondering a bit about this because like Karl Franz and Ungram, a few other old Warhammer 1 lords are actually visible on the Realm of Chaos map, but they're not playable. So yeah, it'd be interesting if they do actually make them playable. We were wondering if that could happen eventually. What are you most excited for when Immortal Empires drops? Okay, so Mitch says, this has been a really long project for everyone, especially the guys who've been in the trenches doing the grunt work. I'm just excited for it to finally be out and to see what everyone thinks. Immortal Empires is a particularly fitting project for me to end on because it's essentially the combination of what I've worked on for my entire working life, all into one piece for everyone to play. A special moment for sure to see that promise of a combined map with everything and it finally coming to fruition after all these years. Oh shit, so Mitch is Mitch retiring? Fuck, Mitch. Don't go. Bro, we need you for a fucking Warhammer 40k Total War. Shit. Is that, did Mitch just low-key announce he's retiring? Fuck. Don't go, Mitch. Fucking, we need you, bro. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Just that little insight into Mitch sort of saying that Immortal Empires feels like the culmination of everything in his entire working life. That's pretty awesome. I can totally dig that if I was an IT developer guy and I'd worked on these type of games. I could totally imagine the combined map of Immortal Empires being like the ultimate the ultimate sort of culmination of everything. It kind of feels a bit like that for us fans as well, I think. Hey, John. Hope dwarves get a better rune magic skill tree. Yeah, maybe they will eventually. Hey, yeah, no, I know the answers are pinned, but I'm trying to like read a bit of the question as well. Are you planning to introduce new races with DLCs in the future, or are you rather expand on already existing ones? Of course, there's plenty of content still to get through in Warhammer 3. I don't need to spoil anything or give anything away for you all to know what's still out there. There are obviously going to be things you expect. I'm most excited for the things that you definitely don't. I wonder what that's all about. But he says like definitely don't. Like there's some pretty like things like that you wouldn't expect as much, like, you know, like maybe Amazons. I noticed they just released a new Amazons team for Blood Bowl. Amazons are always like, you know, pretty like front and center in Blood Bowl, but then they've never been really like particularly big in Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I don't know if they even had any. I think they had some rules maybe in like a White Dwarf or something. I don't know if they ever had an Amazon's army book. Maybe they did. I can't remember, but yeah, they never really had much in the way of model range or army stuff or anything. But yeah, like, but Amazon's is one that I kind of wouldn't expect. But if he says things that you definitely don't expect, what would that be? Like something that we've never had an army list for at all? Maybe, I don't know. Interesting, yeah. The new Amazons look sick. Yeah, I thought the new Amazons look really cool. Lovecraftian fishmen confirmed. Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. I definitely wouldn't expect that. Any plans for Tomb King's early game to get a little buff? Takes a long time for them to get online. I've seen a few people are a bit worried about the Tomb Kings and the new armies in and around Khemri in particular, but we're making sure Cetra is the big bad of the desert and he doesn't just get steamrolled. There's a lot that goes into this from many many members of the team to ensure that the world plays out roughly how we expect. Of course, this is going to be a beta, so let us know your feedback, good and bad. Balancing is absolutely one of those things that we're going to be ongoing from here on out. Yeah, the thing with Cetra that I'm really worried about is that they're gonna nerf all of the cheese with the Tomb Kings, because, you know, at the moment I was talking about somebody this in the comments as well, that is that yeah, like without the cheese, like I don't know if like it'd be even really worth playing like Tomb Kings. Yeah, I was trying to pin the maybe somebody put a comment in before when I was trying to click it. Yeah, I think I've pinned the Discord now. Thanks for finding that for us, Andrew Tobias. Much appreciated, man. I have to give you a newsman badge later on if you haven't already got one. But anyway, yeah. And so the way I see it currently with the Tomb Kings is, if you don't really know how to play the Tomb Kings, like how to exploit them and basically power game the Tomb Kings, then they're probably not very fun. Don't feel very powerful, extremely slow campaign, you know. But if you kind of know how to cheese all their followers and stuff and their traits and everything, and like the canopic jar cheese and everything, then all of a sudden they feel quite fun and powerful, assuming you can survive the first like 20-30 turns until you get like a couple of armies going. So yeah, I'm a bit like, I don't know, like they're saying that they're gonna buff Cetra to make him stronger, but yeah, I hope they're not gonna nerf all the cheese with these followers and everything, which is, there's a really good chance. I think there's a really good chance they're gonna do a pass over the followers and change it so you can't cheese them so much. So I feel like, you know, they could buff Cetra, but if they get rid of that cheese, then overall the Tomb Kings are gonna suck. Then, you know, pretty much, you know. So I don't know. I hope I don't know. I hope the DLC team is not going to be doing that, like removing the fun thing, as much as the main game team kind of seems to have done with the start of Warhammer 3. Like all the traits in Warhammer 3 are all kind of lackluster. You know, there's nothing really cheesable there. And like there's a fine line between cheese that's too extreme that you don't want, that kind of ruins a faction, and cheese that you can, or at least powerful combinations that you can do that actually give you a feeling of player agency, you know, that you can actually do stuff that's cool. Like because being able to combine different elements of a faction together to make something even more powerful than the sum of the parts, you know, is really cool. And if you get rid of all of that, then you end up with just really bland porridge factions that just can't do anything interesting. You know what I mean? So I think there's definitely a bit of a balancing there act there. So yeah. Anyway, what's the next answer we got? In terms of meters squared, how does Immortal Empire compare to Vortex and Realm of Chaos? Off the top of my head, I think it's 75% bigger than the Realm of Chaos and 92% bigger than Mortal Empires. So it's huge. The stats aren't perfect as it's not every tile is walkable on any map, but it's not far off and it gives you a rough idea. The map is an absolute unit. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like that's a very good question, you know, because as he's saying, like Mitch is saying, it doesn't really, like, that's not, like, the amount of tiles is not really representative of the playable area or anything, you know? So yeah, but I feel like it's gonna, I mean, just to look at it, it kind of looks like it is about twice as big. Is he saying Royal of Chaos is bigger than Mortal Empires? No, he's saying Mortal Empire. He's saying Immortal Empires is bigger than the Realm of Chaos. Of all the DLC you've worked on, which is your favorite? Or is your favorite not yet released? It's impossible to pick anything other than Tomb Kings, really. They're definitely my DLC baby. To be honest, my first project where I really got to design, not just a Lord pack, which we've done a lot before, but a full brand new race, and to get to decide how they'd play and fit into the game was a really special experience. And then to have it released and for it to be as successful as it was, both critically and commercially, was a big pat on the back for me. So it'll always hold a special place as my fondest project to have worked on. Yeah, well, good work, Mitch. Yeah, I think everyone I've spoken to about the Tomb Kings agrees that it's a really well designed pack. Yeah, I've recently become a bit of a convert to Tomb Kings. Thanks again to everyone who helped me with tips and stuff, learning the Tomb Kings cheese. Yeah, I definitely agree that it was a good pack. Will minor settlement battles be reduced by way of, say, garrison buildings to unlock it over normal? Lots of ideas at the moment floating around for this. Naturally, the introduction of minor settlements reduce the open field land battles count to beyond where we're happy with, and I think players feel the same. So we're exploring different solutions to this at the moment, and we should have something in one of our coming patches. No exact date or patch decided yet. That's a worry. That's a worry, yeah, for me. I was really, really hoping that they will have addressed that at the same time as the 2.0 when the Immortal Empires comes out. Excuse me. Because I feel like that's basically the only thing that's going to stop Immortal Empires from being flat out better than Mortal Empires. Like, for the people who don't like doing minor settlement battles all the time, you know, like if it's still the same as it is now, like there's still going to be potential for people to go into Immortal Empires and be like, oh yeah, all my races are here, but I'm still doing these fucking minor settlement battles all the time, which I'm totally sick of. So screw it, I'm just going to go back and keep playing Mortal Empires, Warhammer 2, because then I don't have to deal with all these minor settlement battles. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like if they could just fix that, then there's really no impediment to playing Immortal Empires instead of Mortal Empires, and like everyone can just get rid of Warhammer 2. You know, like there might still be some bugs, there might still be some things that need tweaking or whatever, but essentially you're going to be playing the new version of the game, the best, most upgraded version of the game, you know, with the most expanded, I guess, in terms of functionality, gameplay, and all that kind of stuff. Because Warhammer 3's got a lot more stuff in it than Warhammer 2 does, in terms of gameplay and stuff with diplomacy and all that. But it's got this problem where you don't have any field battles, right? So yeah, I'm really hoping they can squeeze that in at the same time as Immortal Empires. But yeah, that comment's kind of making me. The comment's kind of sounding like maybe Immortal Empires is going to come without this. Because Immortal Empires is happening, right? The Immortal Empires is happening in the next month or so. Whereas they haven't figured this out yet, what they're going to do about the minor settlement battles. So yeah, I don't know. Any chance the Dark Elf Watchtower is being added as fortress, gate, bastion type thing for Dark Elves? This one's been asked a lot, so I'll just say I'll cover this specifically in the Q&A video coming soon. Okay, so there's a Q&A video coming soon. That sounds cool. Out of all the legendary lords revealed in Immortal Empires, which one was the hardest to find a place for on the map? This is a really cool question. I don't want to take away from everyone in the team who've been the ones actually making these changes. So I'll hijack your question to explain how our process has worked with these, because everyone did an amazing job. Naturally, to start with, everyone had a location. So the question we asked ourselves was, where could we add variety to the start positions of a race, and which parts of the world needed some additions? We broke down the world into distinct chunks that we called theaters, and we decided who were the main factions in each theater. And if we needed more variety, we pulled from other theaters with an overabundance. And then, of course, on top of that, there were some no-brainer moves as well. Tretch was always moving to Crookback Mountain. That didn't need much thought. So overall, we just went through every part of the map and tried to design a unique experience for different parts of the world. Along the way, many moves were made. Looking forward to everyone's feedback in these on these in the beta as well, as they're one of the biggest areas of change in Immortal Empires. Yeah, if we just have a quick look at the map again. So he's saying that, there'll be there's different theaters, I guess. So there's like the Southern Realms theater, there's like the Old World theater, there's the like Darklands theater, there's like Cathay theater, there's Norsca, there's Naggarond, I guess Naggarond slash I guess you'd include Naggarond and Ulthuan in this sort of theater of the north. They're going to be warring across here. And then you've got this kind of Lustria theater down here. Although maybe they're sort of thinking it's not just like this divided up in a grid like that. It's also like there's overlapping theaters. So you've got kind of like this theater of like Naggaroth versus Ulthuan. But then you've also got this theater here of Ulthuan versus Bretonia. And then you've got like Slanesh in there as well. We've got Greenskins in there as well. You've got Wood Elves, Beastman, whatever. But yeah, so it's kind of cool, like that how they kind of went about thinking about that. And I guess I kind of like, when we were talking about Malice before, I guess I like it that they're keeping some sort of flavor. Like this area here, this theater here, which is Naggarond, Ulthuan, the west coast of Norsca and the west coast of Bretonia. Like this is like, although they could have spread Malice out further to give like more Dark Elf coverage in the world, like this area is the area that you want to be predominantly Dark Elf dominated. So it kind of makes sense to have like 4 Dark Elf lords here, and maybe to have like 4 High Elf lords here as well. We've got three High Elf. Well, we've got 3 plus you got Eltharion kind of. So you kind of got 4 High Elf lords here as well. So this is the High Elf versus Dark Elf is like the main kind of factor here, I guess, and yeah, so anyway, like what I took from that comment was that he's sort of saying, well, he didn't really say this in the comment, but I was sort of wondering if like so Malekith is like the major faction of Dark Elves, right? So once you get past about turn 30 in the current game, the AI for the major factions change and they start confederating minor factions and growing bigger, and they start to steamroll more. So basically, Malekith will eventually absorb Helibron and maybe absorb Marathi as well, or sometimes Marathi will absorb Malekith, but I think normally Malekith will absorb Marathi, and then I'll probably absorb Malice as well, and this will become like a big mega blob of Dark Elf destruction, and that's meant to happen because, like, if you're playing as Bretonia or something, once you've like smashed all your enemies here and you're now super powerful, you need a big powerful enemy to go up against. So by that time, Naggaroth's going to have like 25 provinces and be really powerful, right? So that's already how it goes. But I was wondering if they were sort of thinking as well with these theaters that not only will the major faction like become the dominant force out of that sub faction and confederate all the others. But also maybe if they're planning for one particular faction to be the normal winner in a region. So like for this whole region, like maybe not only is Malekith going to confederate all the Dark Elves, but he's also going to conquer all of these other factions because the Dark Elves are the strongest superpower in that area, you know. And down here, maybe Cetra is going to be the superpower that always wins the Southland and takes over everything down here. You know, maybe Miao Ying is going to be the superpower that always wins Cathay, you know. So if you fast forward, if like you ran lots of simulations on the games and you fast forward to turn 100, by turn 100, like there'll be differences because of course it's procedural, it's not fully scripted, it's still random, so to a degree, but you know, in most games you'll tend to see, you know, a certain faction like become dominant in certain areas. So there'll be like an accepted normal way that it plays out. But then that's cool because then having a normal way means that when something different happens, like in your game, you're like, oh my god, Thorak took over all of the Southlands and wiped out everyone in my game. Crazy, you know. But that wouldn't be crazy if there wasn't like a normal thing, you know. Like if it's completely random and like any one of these factions down here could be the one that comes out dominant and conquers the whole area, then nothing's particularly crazy, you know. Whereas if Cetra almost always wins, like, you know, 80% of the time Cetra becomes the dominant force here, then if any one of these other ones happens to win one time, then it's crazy, it's interesting, you know. So anyway, yeah, I probably went on about that for a bit too long, but yeah. But anyway, just talking about their process for how they created that. When Immortal Empires does eventually come out, the map will be expanded as we go. You've also said in the past we're quite partial to extending the map, developing new areas and reworking old ones. We did this a lot for Warhammer 2, and there is some space left in the Immortal Empires in places. So he's basically saying, yes, we are probably going to expand the map sometime, without actually confirming it. Very sneaky Mitch. He's not giving anything away, but he sort of is. Any plans for general hero talent tree reworks? A lot of factions have heroes whose trees fill up entirely before 40. Over time, this will come. There's a huge amount of skill trees in the game, like an absolutely insane amount. So we have reworked everyone for Immortal Empires. No, so have we reworked everyone for Immortal Empires? Definitely not. But this is something that will be worked on in patches and future updates. Bring what is essentially over half a decade of content up to speed. We've done some work in quite a few skill trees for sure and tackled some particularly bad ones, but the volume of content just meant that it's going to be one to fix over time. So that's really interesting actually, because that's one thing I'm trying to sort of get a bit of a there is some space left. Yeah, Snake Man, right? Good call. Yeah, so he's saying that's a hint where he said there is some space left. Is a Koresh Snake Man hint. Yeah, good call, Savids. But yeah, so one thing I'm on the lookout for really is trying to get an idea of how much of a rework they've done on all the factions, because they've said in a few places that they've basically done an update to like every single faction in the game to get them all kind of roughly on par, so that when they release into Immortal Empires, every faction should be basically playable and ready to go. I'm not sure how ready to go they're going to be. I feel like there's probably definitely going to be some factions that are really out of whack. You know, either way too weak or way too strong or way too weird in some way compared to the other factions. But they have said in a couple of places now that they have actually done a pass over every single faction. But at the same time, he's saying here that like they definitely have not reworked every single skill tree. So even though they've had a look at every faction, they haven't reworked every single skill tree for every single lord or every single hero, generic hero and stuff. So yeah, so it's be real. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm most interested about with the Immortal Empires, like how much of a rework did the factions get, and which factions got reworks and all that kind of stuff. There's gonna be so much stuff like for the scientists out there. Like imagine when Immortal Empires drops, there's like so many factions to go through. Like, God, it's going to take us like weeks, months to figure out all the stuff that's been changed. Hey Mitch, hey Yui, is there any chance that now with the introduction of the fly toggle button that we don't have any plans to revisit Coetl's animations right now? We're looking at ways to fix some of its issues, however, such as it falling from walls. More on that in the future. Okay, so that's what we were wondering about the Coetl animations. Um, how many gigabytes will Total War Warhammer 3 occupy? It's a good reminder to call out something really cool. One of our designers managed to spot some duplicated data in our pack files. So once your game updates with Immortal Empires, the overall build size will actually shrink by about 10 gigabytes. Oh, that's interesting. So Immortal Empires is actually going to be smaller than Warhammer 3. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, so Warhammer 3, yeah, so you only need to have Warhammer 3 installed. You need to own Warhammer 1 and 2 as well as Warhammer 3 to have the Immortal Empires campaign unlocked. But you only have to have Warhammer 3 installed. And they're saying that once the Immortal Empires patch drops, Warhammer 3 will actually get smaller. So that's pretty cool. Will there be another improvement out of auto resolve? It is still not as comforting as Warhammer 2. This is definitely valid feedback. We have people on the team who are now in part dedicated to auto resolve work going forward. So I would say bear with us when we get to grips with this. Auto resolve is one of the most complex areas of the game by far to get right, and it also suffers from being a part of the game where an increase in content is not linearly increasing the complexity curve. Imagine trying to ensure that auto resolve is working with every possible variation of units for all races against all others. We're talking probably trillions of permutations. So to have there not be issues here is impossible, but we're trying to tackle this topic constantly and it's ever improving. Yeah, that's a really good call. There's a lot of the auto resolve, people notice the auto resolve in Warhammer 3 is a bit more I don't know, wacky. But like even if they as they keep working on that and they get that auto resolve to be a bit more expected outcome, I guess, is what we're really going for. You basically want the auto resolve to give you the result that you kind of more expect. So if it says low casualties, decisive victory, you want to see that you take almost no casualties. You don't want to see like all your units losing 30% of their models and stuff. So even when they tweak that a bit, there's still the issue of like different factions versus other different factions. Like there's always going to be combinations that are going to come up with weird stuff. So that does sound like it'd be super hard to actually manage. Auto resolve will never be perfect, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Here comes the controversy. Oh, okay. Will the hero versions of Vlad and Isabella have defeat traits? So we have lost the ability to gain Isabella's defeat trait, as when Sylvania is AI controlled, Vlad becomes the leader, which leaves Isabella as the legendary hero, which is actually surprisingly a hot topic here at CA. Some designers really don't like her trait, others do. So you as the players can let us know on this, as we're likely to be swayed one way or the other based on feedback, I think. Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So I guess that I don't know what the discussions are at CA, but I guess basically the conversation goes something like this. A lot of the players that I talk to, think that Isabella's defeat traits is one of the best defeat traits in the game. It's really powerful. Basically, if you defeat Isabella, then your Lord gets a trait where they regain 4 hit points per second. They get regeneration, and they get some minor fire vulnerability. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, so 4 hit points per second. I guess that'll probably convert into 1% health per second in the new system in Warhammer 3, or maybe it'd be like 0.5% or something like that. So for factions like High Elves, Empire, Wood Elves, who else? Nurgle, like for a lot of these factions that have healing, it doesn't really matter too much. Like have cheap access to cheap healing, like vampire counts. It doesn't matter. It's kind of irrelevant, right? But for factions that don't have healing, like the dwarfs, especially heroes that are especially factions that like the dwarfs that don't have normal healing magic and are very tanky, regeneration is super powerful. So like if you get a really tanky dwarf lord, it's got like 80 melee defense, like 150 armor, you put four hit points per second regeneration on them and they become super strong. much stronger, you know. It's not really such a big deal anymore because of the dwarf update. Now you with the dwarfs, you just farm Iron Wardens tankards. But if you can replace you can replace the Iron Wardens tankard with Isabella's regen, and then give them another ward save item instead of the Iron Wardens tankard, it does make them pretty tanky. But anyway, I've probably gone on about enough. Yeah, so Isabella gives you regeneration, right? So on the one yeah, I think I'm sort of back. All right. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully we get some vision back there. Yeah, anyway, so I was just saying that basically the two sides of the argument are on the one side, it's really cool to be able to have a defeat trait for Isabella that's really exciting, that players really are interested in, that people are going to go out of their way to create their own goals in the game of hunting down Isabella and getting that defeat trait. But on the other hand, it's kind of like sort of like what they were saying before about, you know, not wanting one particular faction, not wanting one legendary lord to be the only one that people play in a faction or whatever. Like Isabella's trait is like way stronger than a lot of the other legendary lords, or way more interesting than a lot of the other legendary lords. So maybe you don't want it to be as dominant in terms of people's psyches, you know, of like everyone wanting to get Isabella's trait, you know, all the time. So yeah, I don't know. I can sort of see how there'd be a bit of divisiveness about that, you know, with one group of people being like, Isabella's trait's the best one in the game. You can't remove it. I need it to live, you know. And another group of players saying Isabella's trait's kind of overpowered. It's too much of a focus. You know, we shouldn't really have it. And like for some factions, like I actively avoid having it. Like if I'm playing as Empire and I've got like Karl Franz, I don't really want Karl Franz to get like Isabella's vampire regeneration trait because I feel like it's not lore friendly for him, you know. Like, I mean, sometimes I will get it. Sometimes I get it on Volkmar because I feel like there's some sort of like internal storyline going where Volkmar got like, you know, captured by vampires, like kind of along the same lines as when he gets like captured by chaos and mutilated and everything. He gets like captured by vampires and like forced to become a vampire, but the power of his faith means that he still stays true to the Emperor, even though he's you know, got vampiric regeneration now. But he did you see my super chat right before the stream died? No, I didn't, Melon. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate the super chat. I didn't see it at all. Sorry about that. My stream must have died just before you did it or something. But yeah, no, thanks a lot for the super chat, man. Very generous of you. And thanks for being a member still after all this time. Got your veteran Kruber hat for over 6 months of membership. Much appreciated. Make the other ones good one then. Don't go forward, not backwards. Yeah. It seems like it's like if they had to remove one defeat trait out of all of the Lord defeat traits in the whole game, like they've removed like the one that they shouldn't, like the one that people least wanted to lose. You know what I mean? Like if they had have lost, like Vlad's one actually is quite useful as well. Like the defeat traits, a lot of the defeat traits are really good because they give you the ability to do special things. Like Vlad's defeat trait of the 4 turns faster to bring lords back is actually really cool as well, because you can do interesting stuff with it. Like if you're trying to do stuff where you farm lords and kill them over and over again, then you can actually give them Vlad's lord defeat trait if you're playing as Vlad, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of cool having something like that you can sort of influence. And yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, anyway, Vlad's one's one of the most interesting and useful ones as well. You don't necessarily care about getting it yourself because you aren't planning on dying that often to need Vlad's trait, but it's really good for certain things like farming enemy lords. You can, if you're playing as Oxyotl, you can get Vlad's defeat trait on Oxyotl, and then you can like suicide Oxyotl and use it to like teleport around the map and stuff. So yeah, there's like lots of different interesting things that you can do. That was one of Andrew Tobias's ideas, I think. If everyone of Legends viewers downvoted the message on the Isabella nerf trait, maybe they get the message. Yeah, maybe. Will future DLC factions and races feature a more varied array of difficulties? We're both easy and hard. Our philosophy has always been to make sure we provide a variety of experiences for different players who want different things. Some of our campaigns are hard, some are easy, and of course you'll have difficulty settings as well. What we want to get away from is where we trivialize things too much. Taurox definitely falls into this category at the moment. I think that campaign lacks a bit of challenge for sure, and we've gone too far. So expect both him and Scarbrand, to name another, to be brought a bit more in line for Immortal Empires, and as time goes on. I will say on this topic, however, that a large portion of our player base are people who really enjoy the power fantasy that Total War provides, and we're aware of that. Sometimes it's just fun to wreck your opponents after a hard day of work, right? But what I think we need to aim for is to make sure this doesn't come too early in the campaign primarily, and that you need to go out to achieve that power, not just have it handed to you. That's really, I find that really interesting. That so first of all, beast like Taurox and Scarbrand, I totally agree that Taurox and Scarbrand have got a problematic, like they're not like good the way that they are. For me, I know that a lot of people really enjoy it. Like when the first time I played Scarbrand and Taurox, I had a lot of fun, but I didn't really feel like playing them a second time. You know, like I've only ever played Taurox like once, I'm pretty sure, maybe 1.5 times. So they're talking about removing the fun to make the game right. No, that's not what they're talking about, right, Rob Edison? So I'm just trying to explain. So basically with Scarbrand and Taurox, like especially with Taurox, but Scarbrand as well, like it's like he's so out of whack in terms of power and speed, you know, of his gameplay, that he's like totally unlike any other faction in the game. And it's almost like you're not even playing the same game. Like if you're playing Taurox and Scarbrand, like it's like you're basically playing a completely different game. Like the normal rules of Total War just don't even apply to you, you know? And, you know, he's saying that, like, on the one hand, that some people just want the power fantasy, and they don't want it to be balanced. They don't want it to be difficult. They just want to be super powerful and go around smashing everyone. And that's cool. But in a strategy sort of game, you want to have to build up to that. You know, you want to have to make decisions or whatever. You have to do things in order to get that power. You know, if you just want to feel really powerful or whatever, you can just play like some sort of fighting game on easy mode so that you just one hit kill everybody. It's not going to give you any strategic satisfaction, but you're gonna feel powerful, you know. And like that's the same with this. Like if you're playing a strategy game, you don't just want to feel powerful. You want to feel like you made some strategic decisions that have then made you powerful, right? That's my take on it anyway. So basically they're just saying that they're not saying that they want to like make it not fun anymore. They're saying they want to make it more fun because they've identified, like, you know, that like they don't change stuff because they've identified, we've identified that everybody in the game thinks that this faction's amazing, so we're going to change it to make it less fun. Like that's not what he's saying. He's saying like, yeah, sort of some people are enjoying just them being really overpowered and ridiculous, but the majority of people are saying they're too overtuned, they're not that fun because they're too powerful, you know, they're too ridiculous, you know, and I fall into that category. Like I played Taurox one time and I thought, this is super fun, so crazy, so different from any normal faction, and then I just never played Taurox again because it's like too easy, right? Like what's the point? And so it's sort of the same with Scarbrand, you know, like Scarbrand's like feels really crazy and fun the first time you play it, but it's like gets less fun, I feel like, after all. And I'm actually looking forward to a new Khorne faction that's not as over the top as Scarbrand, that has like just a bit more toned down. But it sounds like they're interested looking at toning down Taurox and Scarbrand as well. But yeah, but the other thing like with it is like there is like it's not like completely like Scarbrand and Taurox still are quite fun. Like especially, I'd highly recommend you play them at least once, right? Because they are pretty fun, and it's not as one dimensional as all that. It's actually quite like hard trying to maximize. It's hard to explain. Like they are both really overpowered, but like you're not trying to like you feel like a pressure to go even more overpowered. So it's like I don't know, like it still feels challenging, but your challenge is to go like at 100 miles an hour. Like, it's not, you're not just trying to like do okay, you're just always trying to go faster and harder basically, so it's, I don't know, it's interesting. But anyway, yeah, no, I thought that whole comment was interesting anyway. um I think a lot of people don't do enough zooming in on the campaign map. Our artists put a lot of effort into really tiny details on the map. And if you zoom into particular areas, you see lots of little things that you might never have noticed. Yeah, I've noticed, I notice that quite often, and I love it when I see some little detail that adds to the feeling of being in the world. All of our quest battles have bespoke art made for the area, and they take place um, in the world that relates to the battle map or the story of the quest. So those are always cool to see. I think my favorite area of the map has always been Athel Loren. Going into that goddamn place is always horrible. And I love that it feels and looks like a mini Vietnam with tight tree corridors, the gameplay and the artwork work together on that. Um, yeah, that's really cool. What was the question? What's your favorite part of the world? Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool thing. That's a cool thing that yeah, the world is filled with little things, little bits and pieces. Day one says, and it seems I have no more incentive to play Torox now when it will be General Beastman. Bit of crying the sky is falling, isn't it, Day one? They're just saying they're possibly going to rework it in the future. They haven't even changed anything yet. But I think the other part of that statement is like, have no more incentive to play Torox now that it will be General Beastmen. So like the other side of that is you're saying that basically none of the other Beastmen are worth playing because they're all just boring and it's only Torox that are special. Like I feel like every faction should be special, but not as special as Torox. So Torox should be toned down a little bit. Um, Any chance the Crimson Killers will get a movement speed buff so they're faster than? Maybe you definitely don't see why not. At one point, we're considering making greenskins go faster through the Red Sea lane. We didn't, but it does make sense. Lol. So yeah, if you're not familiar, like the greenskins in Warhammer lore, believe that red things go faster. So yeah, the Crimson Killers are red, so they should go faster, obviously. And Mitch just made a little joke there. At one point, we were considering making the greenskins go faster through the Red Sea lane. That would be pretty funny. Taking away the regen is a pretty big deal. It'd be fine if the trait would return on someone equally powerful like Nagash. Oh, this was your super chat? Okay, cool. No worries, Melon. Yeah, to me, taking away the regen, as in Isabella's defeat trait, is a pretty big deal. It'd be fine if the trait would return on somebody equally powerful, like an Agash. Apologies for reposting this in my super chat. Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, I mean, well, that's a good call. It'd be nice if they would say that as well, because that would immediately dispel everyone's frustrations about it. But as he said in his comment, a lot of people in the dev team don't like Isabella's trait, and they don't like the fact that people can get regeneration from killing her. So they might be still thinking about whether they want that trait to be in the game or not. So they may not be bringing it back. But we shall see. No worries, everyone. Are the eastern colonies traversable, or are they not traversable like in Koresh? They are definitely traversable. I think they just look a bit odd on the map because they're islands. There are 3 regions in the colonies, all held by high elves. There's also a sea lane nearby for access to the Cathay coast. Okay, eastern colonies. Let me just get our starting positions. Map going here again. Oh, the eastern colonies, right. yeah, so the Eastern colonies, they're talking about this little area of islands around here, saying that they're held by high elves, but not a high elf major faction, obviously. So yeah, so saying like this white area up here and here, these are non-traversable. Like, so this there's really no beaches. There's just going to be like uncrossable coastline. You can't get onto the land, I guess. And from this area down the top here, it'll just be untraversable land as well. So you can't get onto there. Whereas the Eastern colonies, even though that kind of looks like there's nothing on there, those are actually, you can actually go on there. So yeah, that's all that question was basically saying. Yeah, so you can land on the Eastern colonies. I wonder how much of it you can land on, because like these the Dragon Isles here, they've only got one settlement per island, and like one road basically on each island as well. There's not much room for too much. There's not much room for too much stuff on there. Whereas this larger landmass here in the Eastern colonies, you could imagine it might be like two. There might be like two settlements on there. These ones here are like half the size of the Dragon Isles. So you could like, I mean, maybe you can get one settlement on each of these, or maybe none. So, but these smaller ones, you can imagine they definitely shouldn't have any settlements on them, right? I don't know. So it'd be interesting to see how many settlements are actually in the Eastern colonies. It kind of looks like it's all one province. So, so you'd get like maybe two settlements on the mainland, maybe one there, so three. Maybe it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know. See how it goes. Really interesting question. We call these global. What was it? I think the sort of cane mechanic is kind of special, as it does not only offer something for the. This is a really interesting question. We call these global features, and not only do we really like making them, but our assessment is that these types of features are received really well and are really good bang for our buck. I guess the question is, why haven't we done more? And to be honest, I'm not sure. I think in part because the ideas for these features are generally harder to come by. It's harder to make a system that works for every race, especially given the difference between races and their mechanics, than it is to make something bespoke for one race, like most of our features are. We're also usually developing something new with the idea that it's part of a DLC. So naturally, we use it for whatever the new content is. I think we'd like to do more things like this. I think players want it. We just have to find the right ideas and get them into content packs that make sense. So yeah, so that's interesting. So like the sort of cane is a global feature because it's like it's accessible to everybody. It kind of feeds into the discussion we were just having about Isabella's regeneration trait as well. Like killing Isabella is like the same sort of thing. It's like a global is like a global mechanic. Like it's available for every faction in the game. All you have to do is migrate to Sylvania, kill Isabella, and then you can get regeneration for your legendary lord. And it's it's very similar to the sort of cane in that way, because if you're making a one-man doom stack, the regeneration on Isabella is a pretty common trait that you might want to get for your one-man doom stack. It's available to every faction. So it's kind of interesting that this question came out so close after the Isabella question, because like the Isabella defeat trait, the defeat traits in general are another one of these like global features that are available to every faction. So yeah, I don't know if Mitch had really cottoned onto the fact that that's the same thing, but yeah, anyway, but yeah, so you're saying that with the sort of cane, it's something that's accessible to every faction, and it's interesting for interact. Most for most factions, it's interesting to interact with the Sword of Cain. But also with the Sword of Cain, it's sort of like thematic for high elves and dark elves. So yeah, I think that the Sword of Cain came in with one of those DLCs with either high elf or dark elf DLC. Maybe was it the Hellebrand Alariel one that it came in with? I can't remember now. But yeah, the Sword of Cain is very much relevant to the dark elf and the high elf lore. But it also makes sense that kind of anyone could potentially grab it up. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think of like examples of other stuff that you could do the same kind of thing with. Um, yeah, what's another like artifact or another thing that you could have? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be an item, you know. It could be like a I don't know, like a lake where you go and talk to the lady of the lake or something, you know, or something in the you know Athel Loren where you go and you know talk to Ariel or something, or yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'd be interested if you guys have got any other ideas for what Mitch is saying they call global features. Um, can we expect more content for the Game One races in future? Maybe a DLC or two for Bretonia. Obviously, I can't go and announce future DLC plans in Discord Q&A, but I will say is that when we went back and did DLC for older races in Warhammer 2, we definitely took note of how much you enjoyed us doing that and also enjoyed us mixing up DLCs for different races or different games in the same pack. It was all noted. Other than that, you'll just have to wait and see what our future plans are. So I'm going to take that as him basically saying, yes, we are planning on going back and doing more DLC, but not specifically for Bretonia necessarily. But hopefully for Bretonia, because you know Bretonia are pretty good. Will Immortal Empires be released at the start of August? That would mean we need to release 3 weeks for it. No, I don't think it's going to be released right at the start of August. I'm not sure. I don't know the date yet, but I kind of got the feeling it was going to be sometime during August, maybe maybe a week or two into August, but I don't know. If you could turn any legendary lord into a plushie, who would it be? um, long story short, when we made Rapance, we needed a name for her mount. The main designer working on Rapance at the time was our designer, Alan Suleiman. Alan is great. I love Alan. So I said, let's name her mount after you, Alan. We'll call the mount Suleiman. Ultimately, we did, as you probably know for being in game. Anyway, a while later, Alan's partner orders him a gift for his birthday. What's the gift? A plushie of Rapance, of course, with her mount Suleiman. That's a cute little story. And that's where the name. That's cool that the name Suleiman comes from there as well. I thought like Suleiman sounded a bit like some sort of like Arabic name or something like that. So yeah, it's a really good name for the horse. I think Suleiman. Like, is it? When I first heard it, I thought it sounded sort of like an Arabic name or something. I'm not really sure what it meant to me, but but yeah, like I don't know, I just thought that was kind of cool that the name was chosen essentially at random because it's just the surname of the designer. But I feel like the name really works really well for some reason. But yeah. Um, uh, Yotam said there's a campaign on tabletop around a crown made by the best runesmith who ever lived, who had gone mad. It was around which faction wins the crown. Could be a cool universal mechanic. Okay, yeah, cool. Could be interesting. Suleiman the Magnificent, exactly. What else we got left here? Is that it? Yeah. Did they say goodbye or anything, or is that did it stop answering? Yeah. Okay. Guess that's it. Turkish Sultan. Yeah. Oh, Turkish Sultan. Yeah, that must be who I'm thinking of, Robinson. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Crazy. All right. So yeah. So that's all of the Ask Me Anything. I don't know if I should maybe just start a new stream. Might be better. Um. Yeah, I'll just start a new stream and then we'll start again on the whole like Norsca thing, I think. Because yeah. There's also some other stuff. There's also some stuff on Twitter. Oh, okay. If anyone's got any links to anything, chuck it onto the Discord and I can quickly pop it up. Um, Sorry, I'm just going to set up this other stream and then switch it over. Won't be a second. Okay. We can still keep talking about it in the other stream as well. I just thought like that's the majority of the talking about the AMA, so I thought we'll chop that off and then just start a new one with the actual Norsca stream to make it a bit easier for people who are trying to watch the replay kind of thing. Send a link to the Discord. Oh, okay, cool. I'll check it out in a sec. All right, where are we? All right, hopefully this is going to work. So I'll just end this stream and then I'll start the new one, and you should get onto there.